Thank you to Sale Samurai for sponsoring this video. We're finishing the sketchbook. Not a lot of stickers on it this time. We'll get into that. We'll talk all about my experience in this sketchbook, how it went, how long it took me, my thoughts on it, etc., all that stuff. You know what happens after I finish a sketchbook tour comes next. So next week is a sketchbook tour. I know you guys love those. Make sure you're subscribed. Be ready for it. Make sure it gets into your subscription feed so you don't miss it. And while you're doing that, you may as well also like this video, leave a comment, whatever. I am super, super excited for today's spread. I think you guys are really gonna enjoy it. It's very yummy and delicious. Before we get into it though, I do want to thank my patrons. Your names are on screen. Thank you so much for supporting me. I really love you guys. If you haven't checked out my Patreon yet, I highly recommend you go do so. Every month we have fun exclusive stuff like an exclusive video, podcast, you get early access to art, not to mention the monthly physical rewards of a postcard, a sticker, and even an original if you feel crazy. If that interests you, if you would like to support me further and you want some fun stuff out of it, Patreon is a really great way to do that. Make sure you check it out. Finally, before we finish up the sketchbook, before we do the art, I do want to talk about today's sponsor, Sale Samurai. You guys have heard me talk about this before. I'm not good at like the SEO analytics stuff. I never have been. And you guys are frequently asking about how to do that, and I feel bad because I can't offer you advice, but today that changes thanks to Sale Samurai. Sale Samurai makes the complicated marketing, SEO optimization, keyword, everything side of Etsy easy and accessible to you. It helps you create listings, look at your competition. Sale Samurai can take a look at your existing Etsy shop and tell you kind of what holes you need to fill, where you might be missing things like tags or images, and how you can better optimize those listings. One of the features that impressed me most was the basic search tool, being able to look up any kind of product that I want to make and seeing what it looks like as a listing online so I can better optimize my listing was really, really helpful. How often is this term searched? Is it oversaturated? Is there a better way for me to word it? It can even tell you your Etsy competition, so it can tell you how many listings use that same wording, which can be really, really handy. And then it can show you some of the best performing products with that same title or with those same keywords, and it can show you the prices of those things. So you can directly compare like, hey, what should my price be? How many views does this listing get? How many tags does it have? How many days does it take to ship? It tells you all this information about other people's stores, so you can make sure that yours is up to par, if not better. Starting your own shop can be really, really confusing. Understanding how the background works and what should I be doing and what is expected of me, it's hard to figure out. Sale Samurai gives you all of that information point blank. Sale Samurai has powerful tools that help you uncover the keywords that shoppers are actually using to find and make their purchases. And this obviously allows you to brainstorm for your next product ideas when you're seeing what sells well for other people. What other part of the market could you be profiting off of? There is all sorts of data that Sale Samurai is analyzing for you. You get to see the actual real search volume behind keywords that are leading to sales. You can see average shipping days, price distribution, long tail keyword ideas. So if you're not sure really how to market or figure out the search engine words, they give it to you. And of course, it helps you succeed with your own shop by getting cutting edge sales data and even letter grades that allow you to see how well you're doing. Sale Samurai is incredibly useful. SEO is a hot term right now, and a lot of us don't have background in this kind of stuff. It's not easy. With Sale Samurai, it can be. It breaks down this information and spoon feeds it to you so you can actually use it in a way that's helpful to you in your store. You can find out what products will work best for you, where maybe it's not too oversaturated, but you're still getting visibility. Figure out how to market those products in a way that's effective. Overall, Sale Samurai makes having an Etsy store and having like a successful, like technical Etsy store really, really easy. New members get a free trial plus 20% off monthly cost for life. That's crazy. Visit the link in the description. You can use my code Lilstarnerd when signing up and start creating today. Thank you so much to Sale Samurai for sponsoring. Thank you guys for checking out Sale Samurai. I'm sure you will find it very, very helpful. Now, without further ado, grab your sketchbook and let's get to work together. Let's go do some art. Let's start off with the discussion about the sketchbook and my experience keeping it, and after that we will talk about the sketchbook spread itself. I actually really love the spread. I'm very happy with how it came out. I wanted to talk about that first, but I thought that I would wait till later so it makes a bit more sense for you as a viewer, so you're not hearing me talk about stuff you haven't even seen me draw yet. Although I will say, I lost some footage today, so there is a whole piece of toast that you don't get to see any footage of. Don't be alarmed when we go from, one page to the other page without seeing it. It was a whole thing. Thankfully, it was only one drawing that I lost. So, the sketchbook. I started it on the 28th of November of last year, 2023, and I'm wrapping it up on the 15th of April. That is about 4.5-ish months, which is a longer timeline than what I have previously been following. If you don't know, and I hate repeating myself in every sketchbook video, repeating myself over and over about this topic. If you watch all of my videos, it probably does get annoying and repetitive, but so I apologize for that. But it is important and relevant information for those who haven't seen those videos, don't watch every video or are new to my channel. So I feel like I should repeat myself because it is important and for it's context. I apologize, bear with me. But anyways, if you don't know or you need a refresher, this is my favorite sketchbook brand. It's one I use very consistently. This is my 10th time using this exact sketchbook. So I'm very familiar with it, and I've had plenty of time to get the experience of the sketchbook down to a bit of a science, really. I have found that for me, keeping one of these sketchbooks for 3 months was working really well. It was just the right amount of time that I wasn't getting bored in a sketchbook. It wasn't requiring me to draw literally every day. It was motivation for me to draw regularly enough. It kept me moving and motivated, but it wasn't overwhelming. It was just a really good balance. So overall, it was a good thing. It wasn't exactly world-changing, it wasn't changing the game for me. It wasn't a necessary thing to do, but it was fun. It had minor benefits, so I kept doing it. However, in my last handful of sketchbooks, I was finding those 3 months were harder and harder to keep up with for multiple reasons. The main one being just time. I often just felt like I didn't have the time to fill sketchbook spreads that quickly, that often, and definitely not to the degree that I wanted to be proud of, basically. I was leaving more and more pages blank, doing more and more filler pages. Ultimately, I don't think any of that is a bad thing. Either way, I was getting hours in, I was getting mileage in, I was keeping up a habit of drawing, and I was letting go of the idea of a perfect and uber aesthetic sketchbook. I was ultimately using it for what it's meant to be used for. So I don't think any of those things are inherently wrong or bad, or that they were worse sketchbooks because of that. So to me at the time, it was worth continuing aiming for the 3-month deadlines despite some of the struggles that I was having. I didn't think that they were hurting me or my art, so I thought that I may as well keep going with it, even as it started to feel unattainable. But then I got hired to do this graphic novel, and obviously I am still working on the graphic novel. I was just feeling way too overwhelmed, and I just knew that keeping up with a 3-month sketchbook was going to add unnecessary stress to my plate, especially after the experience of the last book. So I decided that I would try instead for a 4-month sketchbook. And that might sound like not a very big difference. Maybe it would be smarter for me to just say, I'll finish it when I finish it, and that definitely makes sense. That would have been also a good option. And I did make that stipulation when I set the goal as well. I said I would aim for 4 months, but if I ended up needing longer, that would also be fine, and I would take my time if needed. But 4 months definitely felt really doable because that's really only about 16 individual pages per month or 8 spreads per month, which at the time was not a big deal. I still saying when you say 8 spreads a month, that is really nothing. However, obviously I did take longer than the 4 months, but not by much. I think I really easily could have fit the 4-month goal in if I wanted to. I had plenty of time to get in more sketchbook work, but I had a specific video schedule that I wanted to follow lining up for something later. I wanted this video and the sketchbook tour out at a specific time, And because of that, it was a pushed deadline, and that gave me extra days in the sketchbook that I didn't need to be done early, if that makes sense. And since I had that extra time anyways, I decided I may as well take advantage of it. So there were days that, I could have been working on the sketchbook, but I was like, I'm not feeling particularly motivated or inspired, or I've got other things to do, so I just won't, and I'll put it off till later. And so if I had wanted to push myself, I definitely could have gotten it done within the 4 months. I think I did like the 4-month sketchbook. I would continue doing that for a bit, at least while I have a lot on my plate. I also don't mind not really keeping track of the time at all. I think I might kind of do a very similar thing for the next sketchbook and plan for 4 months and then just let whatever happens happen. And I say keeping track of the time, because another thing that I do is I will specifically parse out the amount of pages per month due and try to hit that page by the end of that month or the beginning of the next month. And I don't always, it's just kind of to keep me on track and on pace. But I did set markers for the sketchbook. At no point did I even pay attention to them. And I think that was also a weight lifted. However, I will say that I was, in this sketchbook, despite liking the 4 months, I was just starting to get to the point where I was getting real sick of being in the same sketchbook. I was hitting that point where I was like, oh my God, when is it gonna end? I'm so sick of being here and opening up my sketchbook, flipping through, seeing the same drawings over and over. I'm looking back at the first few pages and it's like, oh my God, that was this sketchbook. It feels like it should be 3 sketchbooks ago. I hate that kind of feeling. I personally hate that feeling. I don't like being stuck in sketchbook for too long. I haven't for a while, and that's why I'm enjoying these faster sketchbooks. So I don't think I could go much longer than this 4.5-ish, maybe 5 months in one sketchbook without getting antsy and then purposely blowing through whatever might be left of that sketchbook. I think having some sort of deadline or pacing in mind is definitely good for me personally to keep moving, keep filling it. And then I can be a bit more lenient and easygoing when I get nearer to the end, right? Because if I have no deadline, I can totally see myself reverting back to OG sketchbook habits, taking 3 months to get halfway through a sketchbook, rarely drawing, then feeling so bored with it and ready to give up and frustrated that I just abandon it half empty and move on, which I hate doing. I don't like wasting sketchbooks that way. So if I stay motivated throughout most of the sketchbook, fill up most of it, then it makes sense. It's easier for me to get lazy at the end. And then the worst that happens is I leave a sketchbook with a few blank spreads at the end, right? Does that make sense? Am I making any sense? To me, it makes sense. So back on track, I spent a bit over 4 months in the sketchbook, and it was good. In my art practice, I would really like my sketchbook to always be the cornerstone, the backbone, the foundation. I want it to take priority. However, for this specific sketchbook, with everything else on my plate, I put it on the back burner. I felt really disconnected from the sketchbook. It was rarely on my mind. I didn't even put stickers on it until the last moment, one of the last few spreads. And for this time period specifically, I think that is what I needed. It was nice to not have it constantly in the back of my mind, to not care if the spreads were Instagram worthy, to only use it as a functional tool when I needed it or for videos. It's objectively a little sad, and hopefully I will rarely ever have to do it again in my art career, but for now, I'll be honest, it was a really nice break. I made some art in here that I am really proud of and really happy with. I did some genuinely creative stuff. There are lots of gaps in time and space here. I think it's clear that I wasn't pouring my soul onto the pages, but with all that extra time and space, I think you can also see that there was a lot of room for creativity and scribbling and thinking things through. I think being on the other side of it now, the sketchbook was overall a positive experience, but I think it's positive more because of the art that came from it and the lack of negative experience, rather than because I genuinely enjoyed my time in it. In fact, it feels more like I wasn't using a sketchbook at all the past few months, and I just happened to have this book to show you at the same time as ending this period. Does that make sense? I don't even feel like I was in a consistent sketchbook. And I would definitely prefer that over feeling disappointed in or frustrated with a sketchbook, so I'll definitely take it. So overall, a good time. I'm happy. I'm definitely looking forward to my next sketchbook, and hopefully it'll be a slightly more fun and engaging experience, but if it's not, that is also okay. So with that, let's get into the spread itself. I decided to go with egg-themed food. Maybe you noticed the theme. Maybe not, I don't know. I did a fried egg on toast for the April Patreon sticker. I don't know why. I really like drying fried eggs, especially with salt and pepper, and I just wanted to do it, and so I did, and then I was trying to figure out what the final spread would be, and I was like, I had a lot of fun drawing that toast. So I went searching on Pinterest for more eggy food references. If you would like to see them, as always, anytime I'm using any sort of Pinterest reference, my Pinterest is always linked down below. So if you want to see those references, the source for them, they are always down there. If I never individually cite them anymore, but if I draw from something, it will always be on my our reference Pinterest board. Anyways, I found a few that seemed fun to draw. And since I would be doing a whole spread, I didn't want to do any that would require like way too much detail that I would get bogged down by and would have like, it would take way too long to draw. But when I do these kinds of food drawings, I am looking for a certain level of stuff going on. I don't want it to be super boring and simple. Sometimes there are fried eggs that are like perfectly smooth and it's literally just a white circle and a yellow circle, like literally. So searching for references is all about finding like that right balance. It did take a bit of getting into the zone. Drawing food is not easy, for me at least. Making it look convincing and nice is very hard. There's always lots of textures, and in my opinion, that's what really sells it. But those textures can be really hard to recreate, especially with markers, which only allow you so much fine detail and tend to bleed. So whenever I was drawing things like bread, it took a lot of work and tiny little brushstrokes to make it look like bread. And even after all that work, I was never convinced it really looked like bread or whatever else I was going for. So after a while, I would just give up and hope it would pull together somehow magically. And usually it did. I think that's honestly a lot of my marker process, regardless of subject matter. I go at it for a while in whatever way makes sense for my brain at the moment, and I'll often get frustrated, feel like I'm not getting anywhere, I'm not making any progress, or it's just too difficult for me, beyond my skill level, and no matter what I do, it's not ever going to look right. And that is where I will usually give up and move on to the next thing. And then by the time I'm done adding details, going in with colored pencil, taking a step back maybe, it all somehow comes together and looks somewhat mostly believable. I don't think it ever looks hyper realistic, of course. I don't think hyper realism is frankly in my wheelhouse. I don't think it ever will be. Like maybe when you look at each drawing in passing, you might be like, oh, that's real. That might be a photo. But if you look at it if you look at it closely for longer than a few seconds, it probably starts to fall apart. I have the most issues with stringy, noodly things, winding things. In the second drawing, there are what I believe are shaved carrots. Are those julienne? Julienne? Is that what that is? I don't know. I don't know what that means. But those and the actual noodles in the ramen bowl, yeah, I cannot see and process and understand that much detail and movement and layers of something. I think a really good comparison of something I somewhat can do is hair. That's a lot of individual strands that are very complicated and tedious, confusing to draw, and can sometimes be, overlapping. But with hair, you can majorly simplify that, make it chunks. You really only have to represent a small few individual strands. With something like the noodles or the carrots, I tried to employ a similar technique where a lot of it is suggested and only a few are drawn. And while technically I think it does work, it doesn't exactly look good. It's not like pretty. I think for pieces like these, especially that a lot of it is just very detailed and somewhat realistic, mostly I hesitate to say like hyper realistic because I feel like that's the amount of work I'm putting in, but that is not the turnout. So hyper realism is it's overselling myself a bit. But I feel like when I'm doing these kinds of things, I think that is important for all of it to maintain that level of detail. And so with things like the noodles, it does look a little weird when half of them are just suggested. I also just have issue with I never even know where to start with that. I literally can't do it. I don't know how to represent that stuff. I've done it a few times. I have not learned anything from the experience of doing it. I really have no idea how to do those well, but I'll keep trying. I do think that these food drawings are really great. I think they're a great challenge. They all include so much detail, a lot of color variation, so many different elements, just a lot, texture and different, just so many different things. And they all require different methods and techniques to represent them. The bacon is a great example. The bacon was so hard to replicate, but when you can do it well, it's so fun and so satisfying. So it is something that I think is a fun challenge that I'm motivated to actually try at. I think it's a major skill builder. It really requires me to be patient, to think about my techniques and how I'm going to represent something. Like the noodles, I'm sitting here trying to figure out how would I? It's definitely a thinker. hopefully with, each try that I'm doing this kind of stuff, it's helping me understand super complicated and detailed visual information better. And maybe one day I will actually be able to draw a bowl full of noodles and do it well. And it is just really fun to do. I love adding the details and watching the drawing come together. The best part is definitely adding highlights. Great highlights are really what make a drawing, in my opinion. On the second page, when I was getting kind of ready to be done, moving a little faster, getting more impatient, a little lazier, I relied a bit more on the colored pencils than I probably should have or intended to, but I think they were actually great for some of that texture and the really complicated stuff and harsh contrast for things like the bacon. If you're looking for some subject matter, I definitely encourage you to try drawing some food, especially if it has an egg on it. I don't know why, but the eggs are just so fun to draw. It's hard, don't get me wrong, it is hard, but it is so fun and it looks so cool. And the eggs, I said the eggs already, but they're great because honestly, they're really easy to make them look good, especially if you add, this is such a hack, if you add specks for pepper and salt, man, it sells it so easy. It's all really fun. It really makes you think. I would definitely recommend it as a spread, as a sketchbook prompt. Give it a try. Yummy, yummy, yummy. Yeah, I hope people cannot hear me. This is the final spread. I am super happy with it, super thrilled. I got beef with noodles, man, because it's like drawing ramen is one of the most fun things to draw. The bird is just staring at me. Guys, the other day, I was watching them go at it. I didn't enjoy it. It wasn't fun. Anyways, yeah, I love drawing the ramen. It's so fun to do, but the noodles are so annoyingly hard. I don't like it. They're hard to do. But that being said, the sketchbook is complete. The sketchbook is officially done. And you know what that means? Sketchbook tour coming soon. As in next week. As in subscribe. I hear people in the hallways. Guys, I know they can hear me. I know people can hear me. That's it. I don't really have much else to say. I think the voiceover covered it. Thank you for joining me. I hope you got to work on something. I hope you check out Sail Samurai and that it works for you, because I can already tell you I'm loving it. So I'm sure you will too. Yeah, that's it. See you next week for the sketchbook tour, because I'm sure you'll be back. I'm asked all the time whenever I'm like, hey, video ideas, people are like, sketchbook tour. Well, it's here. You're getting what you wanted, so I hope you're happy. I'll talk to you guys later. Thank you for joining me. Bye.